This is Chris, the Idaho Painter here on Paint Live TV. Today, it's pretty cool. I've got a package in the mail, and it's the new Titan 440 Impact, and I'm going to be unboxing it, going to be looking at some of the new features. They redesigned the sprayer. I'm pretty excited about a couple of features they've done. There was one of the features of the old Impact that I wasn't a big fan of, and they changed it, so I'm really excited about that. We're going to be talking about it, we're going to be reviewing it, we're going to be taking it out and testing it, and we'll let you know what we think of this brand new Titan 440 Impact with some of the changes. Don't wait any longer. It comes complete with the hose, guns. If you take a look at that, already see it's a 2-fingered gun. Excited about that. I'm not a fan of 4-fingered guns at all, so I don't have to modify the gun. Straight out of the package, the gun's good for me. So there it is, all in box. Here's the sprayer. As you can see right off the bat, it looks significantly different. Well, comes with a standard 1/4-inch 50-foot hose. Right here, we'll just set that aside. We don't need to look at the hose. It's pretty standard. Look at the gun, see what gun it comes with. So it comes with an RX-80 gun, 2-finger gun right there. The RX Pro gun is an amazing gun. RX-80 gun, I really like this gun. Like that it's 2-finger, a little bit stiffer trigger pull than the RX-80, but this is going to be a great gun to go along with a sprayer. If you want to do an upgrade, you can get the RX Pro gun, which I do highly recommend because I like the lighter trigger pull. Comes with some Piston lube right here. So it's interesting because I've talked to some painters in the past who don't lube their sprayers, didn't even know that their sprayers needed to be lubed. This is absolutely essential. Lube your sprayer before you use it. Lube your sprayer every time you use it. And your packings will last a lot longer. Sprayers will last a lot longer. We'll set the Piston lube aside. No need to look at that. It comes with a TR1. That's interesting. The TR1s used to be red. Now it's green. I'm not sure, what the status is on that. I'll have to look that up. 517 TR1 tip. It says right here, this is the Titan Impact 440. Extra power, extra performance. Some of the things that I read about it before even getting it, there's a lot of interesting trademarks. There's the trademark Duralife brushless HE motor, the Max FX trademark fluid section, Logic adaptive controller trademark, and then it's got we'll talk about the vertical filter housing. That's kind of the label, some of the information about it. Let's get some plastic off here so we can take a look at this thing up close and personal. We'll get this off here, bubble wrap off. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to talk about some of these new features. Right, the first feature I want to talk about, and this is the most exciting thing about the Titan Impact 440 that I'm going to bring up, and it's the vertical filter now, the filter manifold. The previous 440 had a horizontal manifold, which was the one feature on that sprayer I just wasn't a big fan of, because when you would actually take the filter off, water, paint would spill out of it. It would kind of make a little bit of a mess. You always had to take the manifold filter off every single time you cleaned the filter, because it wouldn't clean all the way to the back of the manifold filter and filter itself. They redesigned this to now have a vertical filter, and this is a big deal. This is going to give the sprayer the ability to clean the entire filter out, clean the entire housing out without removing your manifold filter. Now, your manifold filter, it's always good to remove it, to clean it, because paints these days are really dirty. In the past, it was really rare that we would ever take the manifold filters off our sprayers. We would take it off our guns and clean our guns, but we never had to take them off the sprayer itself, except maybe once a year. Nowadays, paints are a lot dirtier. If you don't strain your paints, you really should be taking your manifold filter off every single day and cleaning it. it. Now the nice thing is when you undo your filter, this is hand tight. You don't want to tighten it with a wrench. Hand tight, undo it. Now you're not going to have paint. You're not going to have water spilling everywhere. It's going to stay, right here down inside the housing. That's right there a feature I think is absolutely amazing, and it's a game changer. So one of the things that Titan does claim about this new redesigned filter housing is that it's going to clean up to 3 times faster with 1/3 less water. So that's a big deal because you're, cleaning your sprayer every single day. The least amount of water you have to clean with, the least amount of water you have to dispose of, because a lot of places it is now hazardous waste. So that's a great feature with this sprayer. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the prime valve. This is another thing, one of my pet peeves with all airless sprayers is the prime tube. And typically the prime tube, we always have them separated. I usually never use this clip. The clip gets lost, the clip gets thrown away. We usually get rid of them right off the bat. We even don't have them zip tied here because we keep the prime tube in a separate bucket than the paint. We usually keep the prime tube in a bucket of water. And this is pretty dang cool because I've done it many times in my career, and every single painter that's ever worked for me has done this. And if you've done this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you go and you hit the release pressure, the prime valve, release the pressure by flicking that down. There's a massive amount of pressure behind the sprayer. If you're not holding onto this, it comes flying out of your bucket of paint. It shoots paint everywhere, and we've done it many times in garages, outside. It'll whip across your face, shoot paint all over you, and it's an absolute disaster. It surprises the heck out of you. It makes a big mess, and then you got to clean up the mess. So now they've added, this is really cool. I mean, I don't know why an engineer didn't design this, 20 years ago, but it has a heavy weighted diffuser now on the end of the prime tube. So it's not as light, it's not likely to fly out. They've also got a lever now that is a gradual release lever. So it won't instantly release all the pressure out of the pump. It gradually releases the pressure when you hit it to prime. So this new feature, Titan is calling it the new lever action prime valve. So lever action, gradual release, great feature. It's not new to the 440 Impact, but it is a feature I absolutely love about the Titan 440 Impact. And this is the ball pusher valve right here. If you've used an airless sprayer for any amount of time at all, you know that ball, if you let your sprayer set, it corrodes, it gets stuck. There's a lot of different reasons what could cause the ball in here to get stuck. You can get a piece of grass, you can get a piece of rock. We're accustomed to taking a hammer, banging on your lower end to try to release that ball, to try to get the debris free from that ball. Our lower end gets banged up. Occasionally I've had people break the lower end on it. I've had them break the inside seat where the ball sits, and all it does is do damage. This pusher valve now actually has a little pusher on it that hits that ball, it just pushes on the ball. So if the ball is corroded, you push on it, it unsticks the ball. If the ball has a piece of grass, if it has a rock, if it has paint stuck in it, use the pusher valve. Now you don't have to bang your pump up. You're not going to have hammer marks all over your pump. That is a key feature I absolutely love with the Titan 440 Impact. Right off the bat, I can tell, the sprayer is smaller. Smaller means it's going to be a smaller footprint in your vehicle, whether it's your truck, a van, whatever. And real estate into your company vehicles is precious. It is 30% lighter than competitor models. Now, I haven't weighed a Titan 440 Impact, an old one, compared to this one, but you can see it's pretty light. Pretty easily to pick up, easy to move around, easy to maneuver. The housing on it, plastic's got plastic housing, probably adds to the lightweight. The stand looks very similar to the previous 440 Impact stand itself. All right, now another feature I want to talk about, let's find it here. It's the power switch right here. Here's the power switch. So one of the things that I noticed with my other 440 Impacts, the power switch stuck out. It was kind of like protruded from the face of the sprayer itself, had a little rubber gasket on it. that protected it from water, paint, etc., rain, whatever. That would typically get bumped, get kicked. You're putting it in your vehicle with a lot of other stuff. That rubber thing would get knocked off almost every sprayer I ever had. Now you can see the switch right here is protruded. I guess that's it's inside, so it's covered, so it's not going to get knocked off. It's not it has a hard face to it. It has rubber gasket underneath. Less likely that thing is actually going to get knocked off, pulled off. So that is another really cool feature, new design to the 440 Impact. So another feature I want to talk about is the lower end on it. If you've done any sprayer repairs yourself, sometimes it takes a little bit to remove a lower end. Take some tools, some Allen wrenches, stuff like that. Sometimes it's kind of a pain in the neck to remove them, but now they've made a new quick change lower end, so you can just swap out the lower end. I like to typically keep an extra lower end of my sprayers so I don't have to mess with it. If something goes wrong, I can just swap out lower ends. I can work on the other lower end, when I'm not actually painting and making money. I can just do it on a weekend or something like that. Now all I gotta do is a hammer, knock this thing with a hammer, take a crescent wrench, twist that, the lower end's gonna drop out, quick change. That's a pretty cool feature. Typically, all sprayers I've ever dealt with, the handle is in a fixed position. It's kind of molded, onto the housing or however it is, but it is fixed. This, now you just use a tool. It's not an Allen wrench. Looks like a little star bit. I think it would be nice if it was an Allen wrench. I wouldn't search for an Allen wrench to put in there, realize it's a star tool. They didn't give me a tool to adjust it, so it'd be nice if they gave a tool or made that an Allen wrench feature, because everybody has Allen wrenches. Not very many people have this little star bit. But now you have the ability to loosen this up. The handle can be in any position you want within 360 degrees. That's a pretty cool feature if you want your handle, this direction versus this direction. Actually, I like the feature because I would much rather have my handle this direction, so I don't have to carry the sprayer, with my hand like this. I can carry it with my hand like this, which is just a lot more natural, a natural position to carry it. So I think that's a great feature. Other features that carry over from the original 440, says it has quad packings, self-compensating and self-adjusting. Not a big deal to me. It has Permalife cylinder, never wears or needs replacing. I guess that's a big deal if you have, airless sprayers that just wear out and stuff, and components that wear out. All right, let me go over just a few of the specifications on the Titan 440, and we'll see if it differs, from the Titan 440 Impact of old. It says sprays all standard water and solvent-based architectural primers, paints, and coatings. The other 440 Impact did the exact same thing. One gun unit. It only runs one gun. You can't run multiple guns. Other 440 Impact did that. Max tip size is a 23. That's a pretty dang big tip. I think the other Impact didn't run a tip that big. I know if I tried to run anything above a 519, it just worked my 440 Impacts really hard, so I was accustomed to just using anything 519 and below on my 440s. Max pressure 3300 psi, that's the same. It's available in the skid. This is a skid unit and a high boy, so you can get a high boy or a skid. So the small stand like this is a skid. I always just like the small stands. I'm not a big fan of the high boys. I don't like tilting them back. They're just kind of messy. And then the high boys are just a bigger footprint in your vehicle. It does say this unit is existing Impact hopper accessory is compatible with this new unit. So if you want to run a hopper instead of pulling out of a siphon tube like this or an intake tube, you can have a hopper. It takes a lot less paint to actually load up your sprayer. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about the motor. So this new Titan Impact 440 is a brushless motor. Titan claims it's the most powerful motor that the 440's ever had, and they claim it also runs cooler, so that's going to make the thing last a lot longer. A brushless motor, if you know anything about brushless and brushless motors, a brushless brushless motor is going to give you more power. So that's a great little motor inside. I know I've had great luck with Titan 440 motors. I've never had a motor go out. I've got my 440i that's literally over 20 years, still runs. It's still part of my fleet of sprayers. The motor does come with a lifetime warranty. I've never once had to do a warranty claim on any small 410 or 440 pump that I've ever had. And I've had as many as 30 sprayers at one time and probably about 15 440s, in my fleet at one time. So they're great little pumps, great little motors, something that you can trust for years to come, and is probably never going to fail you. Logic is a trademark that of some term that they've trademarked about these sprayers. And what does it actually represent? Adaptive pressure control system, new tip sensing technology, adjusts power and speed based on the tip being used. So that's kind of pretty dang cool. So switching from a fine finish tip to say if you're using a 23 or say like a 521, 621, a large tip, the pump actually compensates and adjusts for that. The motor does. And so using a fine finish tip, the motor's not going to work as hard. It's going to compensate for the tip size. When you go up to a bigger tip, it's going to start working harder. And so what this really going to do is when you're using smaller tips, it's going to save the pump from working so hard. It's actually going to make the pump and the motor last a lot longer. Once again, I've never had a motor ever go out on any of my small, Titan 440 impacts or 440Is. They're great little motors. The only thing I've had replace the packings. Naturally, the packings are gonna, if you don't lube them, they're gonna wear out, faster. But typically once every 2 years, I would replace the packings, on my pumps. All right, so one last thing I want to talk about is this is actually a pretty cool feature too. Is I always run a gauge on my pumps. I run a gauge, a Titan HEA gauge on my pump right here, and then I'll put the gauge on and then put my hose on, either 50 feet or 100 feet of hose. I typically run 100 feet of hose, but I always want to know what my pumps are running at because different tips use different pressures. Titan HEA tips, they have to be running at low pressure, a specific pressure, 800 to 1100 PSI. Now, how do you know what pressure you're running if you don't have a pressure gauge? I always run pressure gauges, so you should too. But they now have a feature right here. It says the HEA zone. So you're going to turn up your pressure. You're going to have it, set right in that zone. So you don't need to know the pressure. You just need to know the zone to have it in. So it's got the green zone right here. It does have rapid clean. That's not new. Rapid clean makes the sprayer because it kind of pulsates as the motor goes up and down, pulsating, cleans the sprayer a lot faster. Beyond the HEA, you're going to start getting into your TR1 tips, your fine finish tips. I'm typically running around 2200 PSI, but that's a great little feature. It has the motor running light. It has an air code light right here too. Don't get paint, on your lot. Man, you see guys with sprayers all over them. They spray, have them where they're actually spraying, getting overspray on them. You won't be able to see your light on readouts, and you won't be able to see the zone, the HEA zone. Once again, put a gauge on there, then you don't have to worry about it. All right, we're getting ready to take our Titan 440 out to test it out and see how it functions. We got to set it up first real quick. If you've never set up a sprayer, really simple. It's going to come with a 50-foot hose right here. You're going to have something to cut this. Make sure you don't cut your hose. You don't need any special fittings at all. There's some warning labels and stuff. I think you're supposed to leave those warning labels on the hose, but they're just going to get in the way. There's always going to be something usually that is on the end of the hose that just has to be unscrewed, so you can screw this into your sprayer. Another just little device that has to be removed there. A nylon cover. Put this on. This is a wrench tight, so I'm going to just tighten it with the wrench. You don't want to over tighten it. Just going to snug this up, not too tight, just like that. Now, other end of the hose, 50-foot hose, my gun's going to attach to that. I'll just set these little bands aside, all this other stuff aside, get it out of the way, take off this other green end, take off the cap to your gun right here. This removes. This is going to screw onto your gun just like this. You're going to need a second wrench to tighten this. Now, what I would highly recommend you doing, it doesn't come with a hose whip. I would never run my gun attached straight to the hose right here. It's extremely stiff, not very flexible. It's going to cause a lot of fatigue when spraying, if you're going to be spraying for long periods of time. Add a hose whip. If you don't know what a hose whip is, just get online, check it out. But you've got to have a hose whip on every single sprayer you're running. So I do like a 3-foot X Flex whip. So I'm going to tighten this up. So again, this is not overly tight. Just going to snug it up. 2 wrenches is what you're going to need, 2 crescent wrenches. Now, is attached. Another thing I want to check out, I'm going to take off my guard right here. One thing I want to make sure, because this has happened to me before, once again, by experience, paint shot everywhere all over the job site. Make sure there's a seat inside your gun. That way, paint's not going to shoot all over out the sides of your guard. The seat is in there. It's a little white nylon seat. Put that back on. Your guard is hand tight. Do not tighten this with a wrench. If you do tighten it with a wrench, you'll always have to tighten it with a wrench. Just hand tight. Make sure it's snug. Set your tip the way it's supposed to go. I really like this option right here to actually set the handle anywhere you want, 360 degrees. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with this tool. I had one of these in my toolbox. It is a star bit. I'm not even sure what size it is. I went through my toolbox with a lot of different of these bits and I couldn't figure out what size it is. It doesn't say on there, but unfortunately it's not an Allen wrench. It's a star bit. Didn't come with the sprayer. I'm gonna loosen this up because I really like the idea of having the handle to where my hand is facing more natural. My palm is facing me instead of facing this direction. So this is a really cool feature. Unfortunately, you can't go straight down with a screwdriver, so it's gotta be bent like this to actually get it to function. So now I got it up high enough. Now I can turn it anywhere I want. I really like it setting in this position right here. Great option. Pretty smart for Titan to do this. Now my handle is set really in a more natural position, just like how you'd be walking. The last thing you're gonna wanna do is lube your sprayer. Now, with a little bit of reading of the instructions, your piston is where you typically lube your sprayers. The previous Titan 440s had a little reservoir and then a button on the side that you would lube it. I wasn't a big fan of that because you didn't know, like, when you're pushing that button how much oil is going in, and you really couldn't see anything. It was hard to see the reservoir, whether it was full, half full, or empty. However, now this is interesting. So this is the bottle. This is where you actually can see the piston, and you've got these 3 slats right here that you got to somehow get the lube back up against the piston. That it doesn't go through there. I wish this thing had kind of like, the ability to a cage that would just open up so I can put my piston lube up against the piston and begin filling the reservoir. You're gonna have to squirt it back there, which could kind of get messy, so make sure you have a rag. I'm not gonna do it right here because if it is messy, I don't want it to get all over my desk. But once I get out to the field, I'm gonna cut this open, squirt my lube back in there. What I'm gonna try to do is figure out if I can get just a little tubing from my local hardware store that will fit on the end of this, and it'll go right through that hole up against that piston where I can lube that. One recommendation to Titan, try to figure that out. Actually add a piece of tubing, or a little late now, but you'll make this so it's removable, or some type of door that opens up so you can access the ability to lube it. There we go. It's set up, ready to go. We're gonna go out and spray an exterior with it and see how it works. All right, now that I've had the opportunity to use the Titan 440X, I'm going to give you some of my final thoughts on it. And the first thing I want to talk about is the vertical manifold filter. They changed it from a horizontal filter to a vertical filter. Now it cleans out with one cleaning and you don't have to pull out the manifold filter. I did pull out the manifold filter, checked it out. It was clean. There was no paint in the bottom. It was clean water. That's a great feature and a great change. I'm really stoked that they did that. The next thing I want to talk about is the diffuser. They put a heavy diffuser on the end of the prime tube, so it's less likely to come flying out of the bucket if you release the prime valve too quickly. They do have a lever action prime valve on it now, so that lever action helps diffuse the pressure when it comes through the tube, and it worked amazing. So now you're less likely to have that thing come flying out, shooting paint in your face, shooting water in your face. So that's a great change on this. Absolutely love the handle. So the handle now, I turned it, this way right here instead of the opposite direction, coming this direction. So it's a lot easier for me to carry. I think it's more natural to walk with your hands to your sides. Really like that. That is a number 30 torque wrench that you're going to need to use to change that handle, and it'll change in multiple different positions. Great feature, great change. I love how light the unit is. It's plastic. I'm maybe not a fan of plastic, but I am a fan when it makes the sprayer lighter. I am getting older, and it was significantly lighter than the other 440s I had. Very easy to carry, around the job site and carry from your vehicle to where you need to put it. It has a diffuser button on it, or the push button right here that hits the ball down here on your lower end, which is really, really cool. Another thing I don't know if I talked about, but it now has a quick change lower end on it that you just, with a hammer, you're gonna knock this large nut or ring loose right here, and then you just twist it off with a wrench. So it does change. If you need to change your lower end, it changes fast and easily right on the job site. So another thing I want to touch on is actually how quiet the Titan 440X is. It seemed to run, significantly quieter than my other Titan 440s. So I was pretty stoked about that. It also is a brushless motor, so that brushless motor is going to last a long time. Titan is really known for the quality of their motors, and I don't think this is any exception. So super quiet. I really like to have my job sites quiet, so I think that is a big deal also. Now I've talked about some of these really cool features that I really liked about it. Let me talk about something that was a little frustrating. So when it comes to getting the lube inside the sprayer, there's no door, there's no access there other than kind of this grid right here. The lube didn't fit through there. I tried to squirt it through there, and it kind of made a mess and went everywhere. So I came up with this solution to solve that problem. So I went to my local hardware store. I picked up some tubing, some soft tubing. It's a 1/4 inch OD tubing right here. And that tubing, that size actually fits right on the Titan lube right here, Piston lube. And then that will actually fit right through the cage right here. I can put it right where I want it, and now I can just put my lube in there without making a big mess. So I do highly suggest you get some tubing to solve that problem. Make sure you don't spill that stuff on the concrete or spill it on grass, because it will kill the grass. So there are some of my final thoughts. I think the Titan 440X is a big improvement from the Titan 440 Impact, not the X model, the previous model. Highly recommend it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to continue to use it and see how it performs, throughout the rest of this summer.